All right. Well, this is JFK show number 105. I had a little difficulty last week. Seemed like y'all were hit pretty hard by the trolls, and we're bumping Jim Fetzer off the air. So we're glad you're back and all that. But actually, I'm a music teacher, and one of my students named Spencer, who's watched all of our shows, by the way, stopped by the newsstand, and come to find out, Oswald didn't shoot JFK after all, according to the National Examiner. Y'all can see it.
Gary, they're circling there. That's probably a James Files story, if I'm not mistaken. You tell me.
Now, they have a new guy. His name is Saul. But my question is this. I read it. It's complete hogwash. Here's the assassin right here, if we can get his picture. There he is. The assassin says it right there. The real assassin right there. His name is Saul. Okay. I never heard of Saul, but my problem is this. We just had some serious JFK stuff going in the National Enquirer. Is this just PSYOP stuff? Is this just to muddy the water?
Sure. The National Examiner doesn't have any standing. I mean, the Enquirer actually is a surprisingly reliable when it comes to publications about some of these controversial issues. They were spot on with regard to their review of Ted Cruz. They were spot on with regard to, and his father, Rafael, which we've dispatched. They were spot on with Bill Clinton and 36 women. They were spot on with Ted Cruz previously and his multiple affairs. It's pretty obvious that Cruz got out because the CIA whispered in his ear that this was drawing too much attention to the agency. We're going to take a low profile. We'll see what happens now that many believe Trump is in trouble.
Yeah. So Larry has some stuff for us tonight. He's been doing some stuff on the Harper Fragment. And if we do have some time, we're going to also go to, I think it's Mr. Bolden, who is someone that he interviewed at the last conference last year in Dallas. And after that, I have some Marguerite Oswald audio clips. Botello. All right.
Larry, let's do these things in order. Larry, let's go.
All right.
Yeah, well, good evening to everybody. First of all, it's been a couple of weeks here, and a lot of it's happened. I just wanted to make a quick comment on what you guys were talking about, the National Enquirer, and Ralph Sinkay had a big expose lined up with them, and which was pulled out at the 11th hour regarding Rafael Cruz, and all of a sudden, this, like Gary was talking about, this PSYOP appears out of nowhere, which, this is the first time I know about this, sort of like blindsided us here,
Well, what Ralph didn't appreciate is that he had the story in the works, was excellent, but he had to not talk about it. Once he started talking about it, it tipped off those who want to subvert all of the research that's been done by the OIC in establishing Oswald in the doorway. So I'm sure they undertook a coordinated effort to subvert it, to sabotage it.
Well, Jim, I think the most important thing that's derived out of this is that when Wayne Madsen tried to get Rafael Cruz's CIA records, he was totally stonewalled.
He was told he could only have them if Rafael Cruz approved. How absurd is that, Larry? How absurd is that?
So, it's sort of like we know that, as we have spoken about before, the crown jewel, the number one thing on the CIA, on the list of the CIA, is alive and well and being protected. So, we know about all this.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to have Ralph Sinkay not talk. So.
I know. He's irrepressible.
Yeah, there's no stopping it. Whenever we have Ralph on, I know we're going to be able to take it easy that show and just kick back. So, anyway, what about this Harper Fragment stuff there, Larry?
Well, I've been corresponding with Jim on this thing. It seems to be gaining a lot of momentum especially after Dr. David Mantik's book, PhD, MD, who has collaborated quite extensively with Jim, and for which Jim's book, his latest book on the Harper Fragment, Jim provided the foreword, where Jim mentioned the new research, for example, Stavis Ellis, the information that he provided on the fragment that was recovered by that little boy there down on Elm Street, which totally changes the whole panorama about what happened on Elm Street and expands the time frame of what should have happened. Okay, because like we have been revealing here for the past couple of years now, beginning in 2014, coming from the Tyler Newcomb tapes, that we know that there was a lot more time there that happened there on Elm Street that we have never been told before, and so basically this Harper Fragment thing is sort of like taking a new life of its own, because of probability that it could have been what Stavis Ellis was talking about.
So, Larry, you've been telling me you've been working on a program that's got a learning curve a mile long, and what you're going to be trying to do is recreate what really happened in Dealey Plaza with a computer-animated program. So how's that coming along?
That's still a long ways away, Gary, but what we have been working on has been rendering three-dimensional images of not only the Harper Fragment, but of certain frames of the Zapruder frame, the Zapruder film that show us that there's a lot more going on there than what we have been able to discern before.
Now, why don't you expand on that, Larry, so that there's it's easier to understand the methodology, what's going on here.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, it's complete news to me, so I'm in the audience right now.
Yeah, well, there is a open license program called Blender, and Blender is a program whereby you can render images into three-dimensional renditions, and it has a steep learning curve. But once you start mastering, the program, you can do a lot of really innovative things. Especially now. In this day and age, the technology of this program allows us to peer into a lot of these images. For example, the Zapruder frame, the Zapruder film, a lot of the frames, where we can start looking into the blowout in the back of the head of JFK. All right, so that's just an example of what we can do, and very interesting.
But Larry, you'd have to have decent frames for that, wouldn't you? Maybe 374 would help.
374, absolutely, and 343. Those frames that we know have not been altered, following, what Douglas Horn and you, yourself, and all that work that you have done on the Zapruder film and the symposium that you conducted, I believe it was in 1998 with Jack White and John Costella, and the book that you have published on the Zapruder film. But going beyond that, this program allows us to exactly like what those people in Hollywood have been working on, the Wilkinsons, and that we're going to have a lot of information coming out on that. But the technology, what I'm trying to say is that we're able to look at all these frames in a new light and decipher a lot more about what's going on, especially that information that we have where the back of the head has been painted over. Okay, and frames 313 and beyond, but also what you mentioned, 374 and 343, where they neglected or they overlooked the images that are coming out of there, where computer imaging is taking over and allowing us to look more into what's going on in those frames as well.
It's interesting you talk about this because Tom Wilson talked about something analogous in his work. You probably run across it, Larry.
Yeah.
If you look at The Men Who Killed Kennedy, episode number 5.
Yes, but Tom Wilson in 1992, his programming and his software was not as advanced as what we have today, especially this Blender programming that I'm talking about, because he was talking about the Mormon photograph, where he was able to isolate the big blowout in the back of the head, but from the point of view of Mary Mormon. Okay, and thereby he was able to discern that that shot came from the storm drain, which I also happened to share in that view. But regardless, the technology that's coming out now that we have now, we are able to look into a lot more on what's going on in these computer frames and other images also.
Yeah, well, it's terrific. That's terrific as a project to see how it pans out. Did you want to show us anything and visually?
Well, I can set it up for a future program, because I've got a lot of interesting data coming out. But tonight I believe we have a couple of videos set up from November when we were at the Judy Baker's conference, what's happened is that we've had so many other issues and so many other programs, and it's covered so much other information that it sort of like got lost, back in the queue here.
Yeah, okay, good. Bring them back. So is this all set up with Chance?
And specifically, yeah, we have a little piece on Hugh Clark, the Bethesda pallbearer who was there that night. He was 19 years old at the time. And we also, I believe, have Jim Botello, who was Lee Oswald's roommate, of all people, and which I did a very personal interview of about 20 minutes there in Dallas in November. And I think our audience is going to really enjoy some of the...
there's a catch, because Chance is saying all he has is one slide that he received from Gary. Can you send him the?
Yeah, I think you said a PowerPoint last week, but then the show got canceled.
No, I sent a couple of MP4s to download from the site.
Can you check? Can you check? Chance.
Send that.
Yeah. Could you maybe you need to resend them.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Botello. He gave a bunch of albums to Judy Baker and said that those were classical music records that they listened to when they were in the service together.
Yeah, exactly. They were roommates.
Not everyone has a taste for classical music, so that's rather interesting.
Yeah,
Lee Oswald liked classical music.
Yeah, Lee was a different character now. We know that much for sure. So that almost makes sense. Yeah, we'd be like that.
Let me,
Have you sent them to Chance?
Yeah, they got sent last week. Let me.
Well, remember, Larry, Chance has been obliterated in the meanwhile, so it could very well be that what you sent before got wiped out when they took us out.
Okay, we'll start over then. No problem. But, going back to what we were talking about, it seems like computers and imaging and graphics, are starting to take over in this JFK assassination thing. And Richard Sprague noted maybe 40 years ago that this is what was going to eventually solve the JFK case. Well, apparently it's coming to fruition.
So what does the Harper Fragment mean, all this information that you're gathering from the computer programs? I mean, what's like the bottom line?
Well, the bottom line is that the Harper Fragment, which was found supposedly 30 hours later after the assassination by Billy Harper, a pre-med student who took it to his uncle Jack, And Jack, that weekend at Methodist Hospital, photographed it, and the pathology department with another doctor called, his name was Cairns. They went and photographed it, and they did a complete analysis on the Harper fragment, and they determined that it was from the occipital parietal area at that time. And what's interesting is that so many years later, Dave Mantic, has studied the Harper fragment beginning, for example, in 1992, where he went to the National Archives with readers, but later on in 2000, he published in Margret and Plaza information on the Harper fragment, where he began to place that fragment at the back of the head.
That's right. That's right. His essay on the medical evidence in Murder in Dealey Plaza 2000 is the most brilliant piece of synthetic reasoning I've ever encountered in my life.
That's right, and that was Jim before he went even further on that and published his book, which I believe it was last year, for which I was talking about, that you did the foreword there,
yeah.
And he even refined the placement of the Harper fragment. Now, the importance of the Harper fragment is, it cannot be misstated here because it comes from the back of the head, the occipital parietal area, okay? Yeah. And the only way that can happen is from a shot from the front, okay? Now, what Dr. Mantic has provided now has been, he has zoomed in and given us exactly where that piece of bone came from. And he has done that by studying, for example, the pattern of the foramina, which are the holes, which are provided by the vessels, the blood vessels, and the nerves,
right.
by placing, those characteristics, the back of the head.
In relation to the brain.
Exactly. He has been able to give us exactly, unequivocally, and in the process, he has torn down other researchers who have supposedly placed that piece of bone in other areas. For example, in the brain cavity of that fragment. So that's why that's why Dr. Mantic's work has been so important, because technically speaking, apart from all that, we can now unequivocally state, that came from the occipital parietal area. In fact, he has even in a way that it's a little sort of to the left. So when you look at the forensic,
your voice lost. Your voice is lost, Larry.
Crank up your volume.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, no. So when you trace what Dr. Mantic has done, it's pretty obvious that that shot came from the front, and he has even gone even further by perhaps giving us an idea that there's a shot from the front where there was wound above the eyebrow, and which Douglas Horn has also studied and worked on with Quentin Schwinn and with Dino Brugioni, where he has also placed that shot from the front above the right eyebrow, which my studies have come up with information that that could have been the shot that also gave us Harper fragment. So
well, remember, Malcolm Kilda pointed to his right temple and said, it was a simple matter of a bullet right through the head, and attributed that finding to Admiral George Berkeley.
Exactly.
Chuck Crenshaw, during a video interview, a televised interview, said how the bullet had entered here and then traveled roughly tangentially back to blow out that.
That's right.
Yeah. My impression has been it had come in and then fragmented, because this was a frangible or exploding bullet that set up shock waves that blew his brains out the back of his already weakened cranium. But the Harper fragment assuredly fits in that vicinity, and David has been very exact in locating its position.
I was always under the impression.
Go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
I was under the impression that the Harper fragment was found the next day to reinforce a shot from the rear.
You're talking about the presumptive location, Gary. It appears that it was taken back to Dealey Plaza and positioned further down in that grassy area opposite the knoll to make it look more as though it might have been an effect of a shot from behind. I mean, I think you're correct in your general hunch about it.
Well, and that's exactly what Dr. Mantic postulates, that he questions why and how the Harper fragment could have been found, ahead of the position of JFK at Zapruder frame 313, when he was in a position where it could not have happened, given a shot from behind, from the southeast window, the sixth floor of the southeast window, and that I think that's one of the most important parts of his book, where he questions, that data, how that fragment could have landed there if it was from a shot from behind, because it doesn't work out,
Larry, I actually did it. I did an interview with David about his book that you can find right here in our archives.
That's right.
Had you ever watched that? I didn't know if you were aware, because it might have some beneficial information in relation to what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, I have not looked at it, but I'm making a point of it, and but it's something now that this is like an out branch of Dr. Mantic's work, because
yes.
once you unequivocally place that fragment where he has done, based on his expert analysis, over so many years, and his expertise, then you have to look at it from a forensic point of view. Okay, so that's very important, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Okay, I just sent Chance the link. Maybe
I don't know if he'll have the time to upload it for today, so we may have to play it next week. So in any case, let's see if he can get it uploaded, which would be great. But if not, let's continue to talk about the other subjects you wanted to address. Gary had several in mind, but I know he was also thinking in terms of some video clips that we may or may not be able to play.
Actually, I had audio clips that I can play. It's just Marguerite Oswald.
Gary, good. This is true. Right. But you can go ahead and run that.
Okay.
This is good with you, right?
Now, I really just sent one picture of Marguerite because, they all kind of look the same. All the pictures look the same of her. She's got her little glasses and all that. So, we're going to I have 4 clips. They're very short. The longest one is 5 minutes. But the first one is her talking about Mark Lane being representing her son. So it's also maybe an extension to the,
Okay, well, we'll defer the continued discussion of the Harper fragment to next week, Larry, when we can have the video clips and so forth. Maybe you'll have a chance to take a look at that interview I did with David about his new book in the meanwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
All right, so here we go.
I am certain that if the case were tried, based upon the facts which were submitted to the public on November 24th by District Attorney of Dallas, there could have been no conviction. There clearly was not a case which indicated that Oswald was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt based upon everything that Mr. Wade said. There were, in my view, large numbers of unanswered questions at that time. Since that time, in reference to the investigation which I've conducted personally, which others have conducted in the Dallas area, none of those questions have been resolved or answered, and many new questions have appeared. Mr. Lane, why would Oswald leave the book depository after the shooting? Well, I have not yet firmly established in my mind the fact that he was present at the book depository building, or that he left shortly thereafter. And we're going to have to investigate that matter more thoroughly before we're willing to concede that is the situation. So you feel that someone else other than Oswald issued President Kennedy? I believe that if everything that the FBI, Dallas Police, Dallas DA version assassination, and that Oswald was on the 6th floor of the Texas Book Depository building, that it would have been virtually impossible for Oswald to have been the one person, because I think it is quite plain that the shots that were some of the shots, or at least one of the shots that was fired, which struck the president, was fired from in front of the president, not from the rear.
That particular view is in direct conflict with the Bethesda, Maryland Naval Hospital autopsy.
Yes. That particular view is the view expressed by 3 doctors in Dallas who tried to save the president's life shortly after he was shot on November 22nd.
I wish to make a direct appeal through a public statement to President Lyndon B. Johnson. I hope my statement will be accepted in the spirit in which I offer it, namely, in the name of justice and our American way of life. A man is innocent until proven guilty. Dear Mr. President, I can now address you as such because of the tragic death of your dear friend and our late President, John F. Kennedy, who was shot down by an assassin's bullet on November 22nd, 1963 in the city of Dallas. I can understand your grief, and I also sympathize with you. However, on November 24th, 1963 in Dallas, because of a different type of tragedy, I find myself the mother of the accused, Lee Harvey Oswald. Who was convicted within a few hours without benefit of trial or counsel. We breathe the same free air, the right to think, and the right to question what we would consider any injustice against another human being. I sincerely hope that you will be so kind as to consider my request, thereby helping me to continue to have faith in our American way of life. Respectfully yours, Marguerite Oswald, mother of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Mrs. Oswald, you said that you were not questioned by the authorities.
Is this part of the same clip, Gary?
Had a strawberry childhood at best.
We want to stop and talk about it. I mean,
Yeah, right.
All right.
I mean, it's a tremendous irony. She's writing to Lyndon Johnson, who was responsible for the assassination of JFK and who was had a keen interest in framing her son as though they'd been friends and as though he were interested in truth and justice. I mean, that's very touching from the point of view of Marguerite, but, you know, absurd from Lyndon's point of view. He must have got quite a chuckle out of this letter.
Yeah, how about Mark Lane saying that he's not convinced Lee was in the building? You think he was talking about him being in the doorway possibly?
Well, no, I don't, Gary, because he's talking about he didn't even think Lee had left the building, meaning he wasn't even willing to position him in the building at all that day, it seems to me. Larry, what's your take? I mean, I don't think he's insinuating here that Lee was in the doorway.
Well, this is from it comes straight from Mark Lane's lawyer's brief, which came out within weeks of the assassination, where he very logically followed what any defense lawyer would have done to defend his client in the face of what he was being accused of. And if I may, I have it right in front of me. I just want to very briefly, because it consisted of 15 different points of information. And I'll just quickly go over these.
Do it.
Witnesses saw LHO at the TSBD 6th floor, which was what the airtight case of the government supposedly was built on Lee Oswald. Number 2, that there was a palm print which appeared on the rifle. Number 3, that palm print appeared on a box at the window. Number 4, that the paraffin test showed LHO had fired a gun recently, and all of these were completely demolished by Mark Lane in this brief. But I'm just giving you the outline of what the brief was all about. Okay, number 5, that LHO purchased a rifle through the mail under an assumed name.
You know, as you're enumerating the points that are supposed to constitute the case against Lee Oswald, Oswald.
Right.
And Mark will go through and rebut them.
Yes, exactly. That he had a card, an ID card with the name Heidel. Number 7, that he was seen in the building by police just after the president was shot. Number 8, that his wife said the rifle was missing Friday morning. That number 9, a package was under his arm on Friday. These are all laughable, Jim. You know.
Well, this is just a classic story of Fraser driving him in the curtain rods and the whole bit.
Yeah, number 10, that LHO laughed loudly as he told a woman the president had been shot on the bus. Obviously, that was Mary Bledsoe. And number 11, taxi driver William Whaley took LHO home where he changed his clothes. That's a key right there because, our basic contention is that the shirt that he's wearing is the same one at the doorway that he was wearing that night. But the next point is LHO shot and killed a police officer. Witnesses saw LHO enter the Texas theater, and on and on. So and finally that he drew a pistol to try to kill the arresting officer. And number 15, that a map found in his possession showed the assassination scene and bullets proposed trajectory. And he goes on and demolishes these one by one. Mark Lane does. This just goes to show how the government, just wanted to completely.
Well, at least one of them is true. He had the Alec Heidel ID on him.
That's the only one, yeah.
But he explained that the CIA Los Angeles Stamp and Stationery Store had actually created that ID for him.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, it just really is really amazing, what the government, to the extent that they went, to frame Lee Oswald.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's Marguerite taking on the reporters here. This clip's about 1 minute and 30 seconds.
By the authorities, I think we can agree that your son had a stormy childhood at best, and according to...
No, I do not agree with you there.
Well,
and that's why I wanted him to cross-examine. There's been a lot of public statements made that I can contradict, because I know, and not as a mother, but some things in writing.
Well, in the past, records, particularly in New York, the Lane's area, show that you, in the past, failed to respond to Lee, particularly when when he was recommended for psychiatric care by the Children's Court of Rome.
That is incorrect, because the court had never asked me. I never did tell you that Lee had a psychiatric treatment. That is incorrect, and to prove that it was incorrect, the judge, when Lee was brought into court, and I was present naturally, let me have my boy. So that contradicts the story right there.
Well, according to Children's Court psychiatrist in the Bronx, there's a subpoena on record that you had to be subpoenaed to bring Lee in the first place, and that there were no facilities available, and that was why he was not committed as a crime.
And that is an incorrect statement that I had to be subpoenaed to bring Lee into court. They picked Lee up, as I said before, which was a very, very sad affair. They picked Lee up and brought him into court. And when I went into court, they took my child away from me in the very instant. And then I had to go into an office, and they gave me a slip of paper where I could visit him. That was the way our child was taken from me in court.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy stuff they're talking about.
How person, wasn't she? She was a good mother, she was sticking up for her son. That's terrific.
Man, you can always count on Mom, if you don't have anybody else.
Not all moms are as strong-willed and intellectual as Marguerite.
Yeah,
well, she was feisty, and I just wanted to mention that Shirley Martin knew her, became very good friends with her, not only Shirley, but her son Steve, who we have interviewed on the Real Deal. And Steve Martin told us that they considered her as family. They, in fact, used to call her Mama O, and they were very close to her. And Shirley and her became very good friends, over the years. And she defended her stance all the way up until the end there. And she, what more would a mother do for a son? It's just mind-boggling here.
Yeah, she was the first one to say he's working for the CIA.
That's right.
That's right. FBI, and he's done more for his country than anyone else. Now that's a heavy thing to say.
She said he would never shoot the president. Never.
Right. Okay, this is concerning Jack Ruby, and she extended, I guess, a green olive branch to Jack Ruby to apologize to her or beg for her forgiveness. But anyway, here, let's listen to this one. It's talking about Jack Ruby.
And now I can say something that I would have never said had he lived. I went to visit Rabbi Robert J. Schur, S-C-H-U-R. I had worked with him. I knew one case with him. And I said to Rabbi Schur, would you please get in touch with the rabbi, who I feel sure is St. Jack Ruby? And without anyone knowing and without giving my name, if Jack Ruby ever asks to see his mother and to ask her forgiveness for shooting her boy, I would be most happy to come to the hospital. Whether the message was ever given, I don't know. But Jack Ruby never did ask my forgiveness in the killing of my son. However, truth will out, and Jack Ruby has left me a message. I was most kind to Jack Ruby. I said I didn't want him to go to the electric chair, that I thought he should have life imprisonment, and probably he would become a better man. And I now will help the family all I can, since they feel like things are not right in the death of Jack Ruby.
So that's pretty touching right there. I mean, we never really think about a person having to deal with their son being killed and then on the world stage like that.
Well, she's right on, too, about something being odd about the death of Jack Ruby itself. I mean,
Yeah.
She's been a pretty intelligent, perceptive woman.
She was in the right. She didn't believe it was him from all along, and guess what? She was right all along. That's why I want to play these clips, because everything she did was correct.
Gary, Larry, did you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, there's new fascinating research being done by Ralph and a couple of other people at the OIC, which point at the possibility of the Jack Ruby hit of Lee Oswald in the basement of the at City Hall there in Dallas might have been staged, okay? And, that's research that's being still developed, and where a lot of the information that Ralph and his people have come out with seems to be right now pretty
Worth
solid.
looking into?
Yeah, I have to admit, it's pretty solid. I looked at some of the stuff and some of the images, and it's something right now that, like I said, it's being developed. But I wanted to go a little bit further, on Jack Ruby and his relationship with Lee Oswald, because if you read Judy Baker's book, you will realize that Jack Ruby was sort of like a protege of Lee Oswald in Dallas when he was young, when Marguerite was in all these transitions between different husbands and whatever, and Judy has provided us information about where Jack was sort of like, his watchman. Jim, I'm sure you know about this story, from Judy Baker, and not very many people realize this, and I'm sort of like, since, I've been working a lot, book, so I'm sort of like, it's sort of coming back to me, but this information is really is out there, it's part of Judy's book.
No, actually, that doesn't really ring a bell with me for whatever reason.
Yeah,
Jack Ruby being a protege of.
Yeah, and sort of like he watched over him, when he was a teenager.
Right,
there.
right. They knew each other when he was young.
Yeah,
Jack Ruby.
Yeah, in Dallas. It's all
Right.
in her book. Yeah, and but sort of like another angle there to look at.
All right, well, here's our Marguerite. As soon as the Warren Commission 26 volumes came out, here's what she had to say about the 26 volumes.
Last year.
51 minutes later, Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested at the Texas Theater in Dallas. Well, during those 51 minutes, a second fatal shooting had occurred in that same city. And at 7:10 p.m., Lee Harvey Oswald was formally charged with the murder of patrolman J.D. Tippit. 6.5 hours later, he was charged with the second crime, the assassination of the president.
Oswald was questioned for approximately 12 hours between 2:30 p.m. on November 22nd and 11 a.m. on November 24th. Throughout this interrogation, he denied that he had anything to do with the assassination of President Kennedy or the murder of Patrolman Tippit. But Lee Harvey Oswald did not stand trial. Shortly after 11 that Sunday morning, with half a hundred newsmen, 3 television crews, and 70 police on hand, he in turn was fatally wounded, as publicly as any man in history. Mrs. Oswald, were you watching?
No, I wasn't.
Where were you when your son was killed?
I was with my daughter-in-law, Marina, at the Executive Inn, and just about 15 minutes before the terrible tragedy, I said to Marina, honey, let's turn the television off, and I turned it off myself, and so we didn't see the actual killing of my son.
You saw the films then later?
I saw it for the first time this past Sunday.
What did you think as you saw that picture of Ruby approaching toward your son with a gun in his hand?
Well, I was prepared for it because for the past 10 months I have investigated in just every lead and everything there was. And the reporters had told me repeatedly that they had never seen such an astonished look on any man's face as my son. And then Sunday I heard him say, the president? Who said anything about the president? And so this was important to hear him say this.
No matter what kind of preparation you had, could anything prepare you for seeing a scene like that? Certainly you must have felt something.
Yes, of course I did. I immediately went to the screen, and I went as close to the screen as I possibly could because I wanted to catch every word that my son said. I had asked the officials to show me this picture, because this would have helped me in my immediate investigation, but I was denied that privilege. So this was the very first time, and of course, I didn't even know that particular film was going to come on. And immediately when I realized that Lee was leaving the detective's office, as I said, I went as close to the picture as I possibly could. And I saw the protection that he had. He was wide open. The men were on either side of him, and there was no one in front of him at all. And then, of course, I saw Jack Ruby shoot myself.
You're certain, Mrs. Oswald, that your son could not have killed the president?
Wow, I've never heard her talk as vividly about that. It's her son being shot that way. And, hey, she said he was wide open. It seemed like it was a setup, Larry.
Well, like I said, Ralph and some of his collaborators have been studying this, and there's a couple of issues here. Number one, he was forced to wear a heavy dark sweater.
Yeah, they put him in a dark sweater so you couldn't see where he'd been shot. You wouldn't be able to tell where the blood was.
Exactly, Jim. Number two, if you look at the autopsy photograph of Lee Oswald, there on the in the pathology room there, and he has this giant Y incision.
Right.
Okay, and you can see the trajectory and of the bullet that supposedly that killed him, or not supposedly, but obviously that killed him. And Ralph has been studying, where this bullet went through the superior vena cava, his liver, and all these organs that were that had a lot of blood flowing through them, and that you don't see any type of blood gushing out in any of the film of the assassination of Lee Oswald in the basement of City Hall there. So it's sort of like interesting that they're taking a new look at all of this about what went on there down there.
You mean maybe have the black sweater because there's going to be no blood at all?
that it could have been staged, Gary. It could have been staged, and that maybe he was double-crossed after he was in the ambulance, and that's where they took him.
Well, what's the theory here, Larry? The idea of staging. I mean, he was clearly set up. You know, they knew Jack was going to shoot him.
Well, Jim, apparently
they had him between two officers holding him as a target, so he couldn't move.
That's right.
That was all part of the setup. Putting him in the dark sweater too.
That's right.
You're talking about something different, that there was
absolutely. And
look at that reaction on his face. I don't think anyone could possibly react that way if they hadn't been actually shot.
Well, Ralph is actually zoomed in at his feet, you know, where he sort of like raises up on his toes, you know, and some very interesting information. You know, I'm not professing, or I'm not endorsing any of this. I'm just bringing it out. Okay.
We are not endorsing that it was a different guy.
Okay.
Shot Lee Oswald, but we're looking into it because we're on the cutting edge, and we are not afraid.
Okay. Now, the other thing, that none of the officers that were around Lee Oswald were affected by this shot, you know, or doesn't even look like they're even splattered with blood or anything like that, you know. So, you know,
well, with the heavy sweater and the internal injuries, I don't think it's inconceivable that the bleeding was internal by and large, and that the sweater would have inhibited their blood stream. I mean, that would be my impression initially.
Yeah,
seemed like there would have been something, just a little stain or something.
We've had some videos of that type of shot in a different setting, for example, on YouTube, where immediately you've seen blood gushing out, you know, in an uncontrolled manner. So that's why they're sort of like taking a look at this, you know.
Okay, but the idea wasn't to allow him to fake his death. This isn't an Elvis story, is it?
Well, Jim,
Lee Oswald is actually alive and well in Tahiti.
No, Jim, actually, because the autopsy photographs are real, so we know that he was dead there in the apartment in Parkland, you know, so.
It's basically like this, Jim.
Chuck Crenshaw wasn't attending to a double.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that they could have done this in the ambulance, you know, perhaps maybe double-crossed.
I think they were applying CPR, which you shouldn't do if you have internal injuries in the ambulance to promote internal bleeding.
Right. According to Jim Marrs.
I believe that.
Yeah, according to Jim Marrs, you know, but that maybe they double-crossed him, you know, and they took him out in the ambulance, and you know, because they had promised him to maybe fly him out of the country or something like that. You know, we don't know, but these are just, you know, the speculation here, you know.
Well, we got about 3 minutes. You want to let Marguerite take us out?
Sure. We got one more.
Could not have killed Patrolman Tippett.
Well, my investigation shows nothing other than that Lee was a patsy, and this is a frame-up. I don't say I'm right.
Who's framing him, Mrs. Oswald?
Well, I wished I had the time to go into the complete story, and you must understand that there's many aspects to this case. Who framed Lee Harvey Oswald? I have stated from the very beginning, after being kept in protective custody for 6 days, where we were not allowed to see anyone. In other words, we were also deprived of an attorney, and the newspapers were running wild with stories, anything they wanted to say. The family was kept in protective custody.
Will you someday tell the story of who framed Lee Harvey Oswald?
Yes, I have told it, and I started to say now that my investigation shows that our trouble is in our State Department, that there are few men in our State Department who wanted President Kennedy out of the way. I'm a very unpopular person.
Do you really believe this, Mrs. Oswald?
It isn't that I believe this. It is because I think I have circumstantial evidence to back me up.
What evidence do you have?
Well, I have documents that are not explanatory. I went before the commission with my documents, and the one in particular, they were supposed to inform me about, and they didn't. And, well, it's just really too much to try to understand the impact of all of this.
Mr. Oswald, do you accept or feel any guilt at all for what has happened to your son?
No, I don't. And this is the deplorable part of the report of the president. The president's report on the assassination is that Lee was a misfit and that I didn't give him the emotional need that he needed.
All right.
That's amazing. She was a bloodhound. She, like Jim Garrison, was on the trail of the assassins.
Well, you know that she actually went and visited Helen Markham, you know, and with Vincent Salandria and Shirley Martin, you know, and they went over there and they saw the condition, the extremely nervous condition that Helen Markham was, and that she obviously was being intimidated, and she went and visited other witnesses, you know, so she sort of like took this whole investigation on her own, Jim.
Larry, it's great you had those clips. Take us out.
All right, fellas. I have 2 more clips of Marguerite Oswald. Maybe we can play them next week, but this is JFK number 105, and God bless Marguerite Oswald.